I'm sitting here reflecting, thinking, and that is a state of mind that is easy to get into when working with your hands, but especially for this pendant, because this pendant will be a bind rune that spells out hugya, which means to think or to reflect in Old Norse. And it's making me think, or when I made this pendant first, I was thinking about the importance of reflecting and what impact it had on my life. I am the type of person that easily gets worried, and especially before, it did affect my life very much negatively. When getting worried, it's easy to get overwhelmed and feel anxiety. And I learned something from Norse mythology. In my younger days, I was grown up in a quite religious area where Christianity was the religion, and I quite early took distance from that and everything that has had something, everything that couldn't be well explained, I didn't pay attention to, and I didn't see them anything more than just stories. But with age, I guess, and the longer you live, more experience, then started to live more by the quote, which is also from a Icelandic saga, that wisdom is welcome whenever it comes from. So without limiting myself, I started to listen and learn from it. And one thing that was really helpful for me when it comes to, and here is the connection to thoughts and reflection, is when I did see the ravens, Hugin and Munin, in a different way. So Hugin and Munin are Odin's two ravens, and the names, they are, as it often is with Norse mythology, it's difficult to translate directly into our modern language, because especially when it comes to this, it is often quite complex, and it is so as well with Hugin and Munin. But the most common translation is Hugin comes from Hugur and means thought, and Munin would be memory. And it is said that Hugin and Munin flies out every morning and gathers information, and then come back to Odin with and reporting what they have seen. It is also said that he is afraid that they one day won't come back. He is especially afraid that Munin won't come back. Just a short reflection on that is our brain works in that way that we are thinking the same thoughts over and over again. I think it is every day 70%, or was it even more? Anyway, the majority of our thoughts are same as yesterday, which is quite interesting. And without a memory, you wouldn't be much. So when I then started to think, and what can we learn from this? How can it be helpful? Because I believe that these stories are more than stories. That they want to tell us something, and I see them more as, rather than all this being that is mentioned, in the stories. Rather than seeing them as actual beings, I see them as metaphors. And Hugin and Munin is a quite easy metaphor, since we know what they stand for: thought and memory. What I learned from it is that first it distances ourselves. It creates a distance from you as a person to the thoughts and memory, meaning that you are not the same thing. And that by its own is a relief when you really realize that. And another thing it teaches us is that when you see your thoughts as birds that are coming with information to you, it is up to you to take the decision whether you or what you do with the information, if you believe it or not. And once you start to live by that, it makes life a lot more easy. I mean, I don't mean easy. It's never easy when it comes to thoughts and feelings, but you probably get what I mean. I think that is the lesson that have been the most helpful for me, or it was a big aha moment that I could learn something from the mythologies. And these are, I believe it's the same with all mythologies and stories that are from old age. For some reason I resonate with the Norse culture. So after I started to think more about the thoughts in that way, that it is information for me and it's up to me what I do with it. When I start to worry and thoughts are getting like starting from a small nagging thought, and then it grows and grows until it's out of hands in the worst case. So one thing to do, what I used to do, is to just pause for a moment and think of what is actually happening here, and just taking a different perspective on the thought and viewing it as I have gotten information, and then I shall see if I believe it or not. And I think the one thing with stories and why they are so powerful is that they create pictures in our mind, and our brain is made that way to think. When we think of a story, we don't think of text, we think in pictures. And when viewing these kind of things, it makes it easier to visualize and less abstract in a way. And I think that is one thing that makes stories so strong, because in different states it's very difficult to take control over the thoughts. So the easier we can access them, the better it is. And therefore stories and be able to visualize it in a way, it's a good way. Another thing that's also been helpful is to actually make it visible. Simply write it out on a paper, all the thoughts, and then take each thought one by one and see what can I do about it, simply. One thing I wanted to add here was humans are humans. Even if times look very different now than it did 1,000 years ago, our brain haven't developed really much since. So people have been struggling with these things always, more or less. As I remember, I saw a documentary, was it Headbanger's Journey? It's a guy who travels around the world and interviews. It's a documentary about metal music, and he had a interview with Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson, and he asked, I don't know, I could sense in his way he questioned that was wondering if Iron Maiden were surprised when they knew they have fans in, like, let's say, well, in the Eastern world. But they weren't surprised at all. They just said, kids are kids. And I think it's the same here, that humans are humans, even if times are very different now, our brains are not. So I believe that we don't have to invent the wheel again. People have been struggling with these things always and have made reflections already on these things. And they have captured it in stories in order to preserve it and let the wisdoms go to the next generation. So it might be a good idea to take a look at our history and instead of just searching for new solutions, there might already be a solution to take a look at. So reading and reflection, you come a long way with that. This is copper, by the way, I'm working with. I'm making a copper pendant. It's getting closer to coming together. I will add a little bit more of solder. Let's put a heat sink right there. Right, here we have the finished pendant. A bind rune pendant in copper, which spells out hygge. In Old Norse means to reflect or to think, which is, I encourage you to put in your daily routine. And if you have any other stories or strategies related to the topic, feel free to share in the comments. I'm sure we will find it interesting and helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.